Hey everyone, and welcome to our thoughts on the Munsters, Rob Zombie edition.
Indeed.
So, Brandon and I
There we
were
go.
lucky enough to see our digital copy of the movie, and we have some thoughts on it. We initially posted our trailer thoughts. You can go check that out if you
Mm-hmm.
want to before you see this one, and come back and hear us talk about this. First, we'll do our non-spoiler section before we lead up to our truer thoughts of the movie, so to speak.
Indeed.
Um,
And
so
before we get into that,
yes.
we should say, I always want to try and be as official as possible with these. Hopefully somebody out there will watch this and go, these guys are professional. We should we should give them things. It was written and directed by Rob Zombie, of course. Pretty much everybody knows that. So much so that I even wrote that on the board. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Very
It's
good.
like, he shoves his name on everything like John Carpenter, right? So felt like it was necessary. And it stars Jeff Daniel Phillips, Sheri Moon Zombie, Daniel Roebuck, Richard Brake, and Jorge Garcia. And some other people as well, but those are the stars of it. And basically, the plot of the movie is a prequel. It's a prequel to everything that you may or may not know about the Munsters. It's Lily and Herman meeting each other for the first time, and I don't know, you know, uh
I mean, that's truly the plot.
shenanigans. Yeah.
They meet each other,
Shenanigans
shenanigans
transpire.
ensue.
Yep.
Um, they acquire the house on Mockingbird Lane, and they set up what's going to be their future family because
Mm-hmm.
Eddie is not in this. Marilyn isn't
Nope.
even in it. So, okay, I mean, whatever. I guess that's fine to focus on uh the other three as a main trio, which we'll talk about. Uh, because I
Mm-hmm.
do have some things to say about all three characters.
Of course. But what are your non-spoiler thoughts on it to let the people
Uh,
know that haven't yet seen the movie?
I'll just say I'll say what I've said to everybody about it. I don't think Rob Zombie has ever seen an episode of The Munsters in his life. That is exactly what this movie is like to me. It's literally The Munsters in name and character likeness only, and has no essence of the show but modernized, like none of it, as to where a lot of the Adams family stuff has been able to modernize it but still keep some of the charm, which
Mm.
is a shame because, as we've said before, I prefer the Munsters over the Adams family.
Yeah, I do
But
as
this
well.
just has none of that, and it's such a haphazard movie. It's so all over the place. It is not finished, and that's obvious when you watch this movie. It has a few likable aspects, but
Mm-hmm.
overall, it's not a very good movie. It is easily, it might even be worse than Halloween 2.
Oh God.
But no, this is
Um,
pretty damn low on the totem pole.
so I disagree with the last thing you said there. Not the totem pole thing, but the Halloween 2 thing. I would much rather watch this over Halloween 2. Um, and my perspective on it is much more positive than yours. Not that it's positive in general, but it does have a more positive spin. I really liked Jeff Daniel Phillips. We'll get into, why that is later, but um his
And
take on Herman is not anything like Fred Gwynn, but there's something about it that's really likable
so that
in
was
the
one of the
way
first things that I'm sorry, you can go on.
in a way that Sheri Moon Zombie's not likable
100%.
at all.
So
You know?
that was one of the things I told you at work because I ended up telling
Yes.
Brandon a whole bunch of things beforehand because I really couldn't keep my mouth shut about it. I was just in awe of this movie. And that was one of the things that shocked me because going into it, that was one of the things I complained about the most was because he talks like this the whole time, and that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't change. That's what he's
Mm-hmm.
like in the movie.
You get used to it though,
Yes, you
and
do.
his version of Herman is so different than Fred Gwynn that it's almost like in your mind, at least in mine, it separates. and you kind of end up liking both equally, but for different reasons. That
Yes.
was my feeling watching it.
And I think like I said, he was my standout character, surprisingly. And I ended up liking him the most. I ended up liking his sense of humor more towards the middle and the end than so the beginning, because they just kind of, I'm gonna get into spoilers. Okay, I can't say that yet. Sorry, I stopped myself.
Basically, I challenged myself to come up with 3 words or, descriptives or adjectives or whatever for this movie. And it's basically, it's weird, it's goofy, and it's not for the average person. Now, what I mean for that is this is a movie that is for like the Halloween junkie in your life. But what's funny is I'm a Halloween junkie, meaning the season, obviously, not the series.
Yes.
And this still was not really up my alley. But it's not, the average person's not going to like this. The average kid, the average adult, doesn't matter. It's a little too weird for kids, and it's a little too weird for adults. I'll just use the same word. It's too weird for both. Kids aren't going to like it. They'll probably be They'll probably be creeped out by it. Side note, no, I can't say that.
Strike that. Reverse it.
Yeah, they'll be creeped out by it though. They'll probably have nightmares or something. And adults, I mean, I will say this. I don't think Lucas agreed with me at all. But I thought that the cinematography and the set design was actually quite beautiful. I really got into it. It doesn't look cheap like it did in the trailers. In fact, I'm watching this movie and I'm like, Rob Zombie lied. This is a $40 million movie. It really is. And it all went into the sets. That's my opinion, obviously. But, you think of like, Dr. Wolfgang's lab. Like, what the hell? I would believe it if half of the budget went into building that thing.
Yes, it does look
with the
very
lights
nice
on the ceiling and stuff. Like the movie, even though the way it's shot, from a, I don't know, I guess directorial standpoint, does feel a little bit cheap. But when it comes to the actual sets, they feel very expensive. And
I wouldn't even say cheap. I think the word is just rushed.
Yeah, maybe rushed.
Because I think a lot of it has to do with the blending of CG that they do in like post-production with these sets. Because sometimes there's a clear difference between what's real and what's CG. And I
don't think it's CG though. I know what you're talking about. There's like a weird surrealism when it comes to, and I don't think that this is really a spoiler. You actually see a little bit of it in the trailer, but it's like Herman and Lily, they're starting to date and they go to like a bunch of different cities, and you can tell that they were not actually in those cities. It was just a green screen backdrop. But that's not CGI though, if that's what you're talking about, because I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I guess I must have used the wrong word.
Chroma key,
sure.
Green screen. There's not a lot of
did you notice the CGI rats that would scurry across the floor every now and then?
I actually enjoyed that though.
You did?
Okay. I really did. I thought it made me chuckle. Because it was like a joke that just kept on, like a recurring joke or whatever. And as far as I could tell, like Grandpa's castle or the Count's castle was a miniature. I could be wrong, but I think it was a miniature. I don't think that was any CGI either, because it felt tangible. It was this big castle that is kind of like crazy and whatnot, but it felt tangible. And honestly, at the end of the day, though, I don't regret watching this movie at all. Some movies I regret watching. I don't regret watching this, honestly. I wouldn't take that back, but I will probably never watch this movie again either, so it's weird. It's definitely a way to waste an hour and 50 minutes or whatever it is.
Because the movie does have a pretty long runtime for what it is.
It does, where nothing much happens in it, unfortunately, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't really know who this movie was made for, because it certainly doesn't seem like it was made for Munsters fans. It doesn't seem like it was made for kids, especially with the sexual jokes in it.
Yes.
You know, there's some heavy sexual jokes. Like, it goes further than like what SpongeBob does, and parents get mad at SpongeBob all the time. And you know, and it's not for adults, I don't think. Like, I don't think this was made for you or me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and then it also, like you said, isn't made for, you know, the Halloween season lover like you or me either. So what I think the movie tried to do was take everybody that you just mentioned in that umbrella and capitalize off of it by making this movie.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. It's a shame. It's because it's like there was moments in this movie that I enjoyed so much that I'm like, oh, we're right
the
there.
movie
Like,
definitely has its moments. And
it does.
It almost
we
gets
were
there.
this close to greatness. Yeah, it was like it right there. Like if they just done this a little bit differently, or if they did that a little bit differently, like I'm like, I can see the potential here. I can really see the potential. And then the ball is just dropped, and you know, it's just I don't think this is a spoiler because I'm not going to say specifics, but especially the ending. The ball is dropped so hard for that ending that it almost undoes the rest of the movie.
I don't like the sound of that.
Because
Yeah,
I was feeling decent about the movie.
The movie just like
until
ends.
that ending. It does.
Like
it
literally
does.
just ends.
It does.
Again, which isn't a spoiler. You don't know how, but it just stops.
It does just end. And it seemed like a weird oversight. And it seemed like there were some things being set up towards the end of the movie that just get, you know, it's like a, you know, dangling thread. You know, they never go back to certain plot points. It just like, it's almost like when they, you know, get to a certain place, they try as hard as they can to just tie up all the loose ends of this movie. Because I'd be shocked if it got a sequel. I'd be really shocked. So it's almost like you have to imagine that this just turns into the show, and that's it. You know, it just goes right into the show. Like, there's a time jump, obviously, where Eddie is born and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know. There's out of the actual, you know, non-spoiler thoughts, I guess that's really it.
I agree.
I want to say one thing though. There's certain moments where Rob Zombie does like some really like zany movements with the camera. You know what I'm talking about? You know, like I don't even know what it is he's trying to emulate. Is it Quentin Tarantino? Is it you know, Edgar Wright? Like, just that really, there's that like zany kind of thing going on sometimes. Like the camera almost acts how the character that it's filming is acting.
Yeah, it gets kind of like snappy and stylized almost.
Yeah, very snappy and stylized. And if somebody on the camera, which there is a part of the movie where a guy's talking on the phone and he's like really animated and stuff, and so the camera goes like in, out, you know, and you know, like that kind of thing, like, you know, like really quick, bam, snappy cuts and quick movements and stuff. And in that aspect, I was like, Rob Zombie stepped outside his comfort zone, and in some ways it paid off, but in some other ways I'm like, you know, stop. It's, you know what it is? It is style over substance.
There you go.
Yep. Truly. Like the Munsters. Style over substance. So, yeah. if that appeals to you and you haven't watched the movie yet, then yeah, go check it out. Truly, like I said, I don't regret watching it. Lucas might.
It's definitely not the worst movie I've ever seen.
No, it's not even the worst Rob Zombie movie. There's even Halloween 2 aside, there's other movies that can take that spot. So I don't know. Let us know if if people are turning away now because we're about to get into spoilers. Watch it and come back and let us know how you felt. Did you agree with our points? Did you disagree? Are we geniuses? Are we idiots? Let us know. Comment down below.
I'm sure you'll tell us.
Don't forget to hit that like button too, right?
Give us a like, please.
It helps out massively.
Massive.
So, it makes it, make sure that somebody else will now see it because you liked it. So, alrighty. Bye, people that haven't seen it yet.